Our Karina Kling actually sat down with Homeland Security Committee Chairman in the House, Michael McCaul of Austin, earlier today to talk about the federal response to Hurricane Harvey as the storm continues to move towards the coast, a Category 2, almost Category 3. Let's listen to what Congressman McCaul had to say.
And we want to thank Congressman McCaul for stopping by the studio. Thanks for joining us to talk about the hurricane. A lot of people bracing for this hurricane. With your role, what can you tell us about what you've heard, what you're advising, what you're hearing from federal government officials as well as state officials?
Well, we're looking at a Category 3 hurricane. It's very serious. It'll be hitting landfall tonight and early this morning. Tomorrow morning. I've talked to the FEMA administrator, state emergency manager. We're very well prepared for this, but the flooding will be 2 feet of water in some areas. So it's a very serious thing. Evacuating is very important in the impacted areas. Also, not to drive in flooded conditions. The saying is "turn around, don't drown." So. I think we're as best prepared as we can be. FEMA has pre-positioned assets and personnel in the state of Texas to respond to this crisis.
Yeah, I mean, how much can you really prepare for? We're hearing 3 feet of water in some places. How do you prepare for that? And
I think it's just being educated and advised. Every local county judge, emergency manager will be putting out information, FEMA, the state, as well as my social media. Advising people what to do. Of course, if you're leaving, a radio with battery so you can listen to the news reports. And I think most importantly is not to drive into dangerous conditions where you have flooding.
A little bit premature to talk about it, but because of your position and your role in dealing with assistance from FEMA and making sure that that's being taken care of post the hurricane and the damage that is done, what are you hearing? How prepared are people for that? What is the prep-like work to make sure that the assistance is there and is done quickly?
Well, again, FEMA has pre-positioned assets both in Dallas and Seguin, Texas, outside of San Antonio, to respond to this. FEMA basically provides the assistance at the request of the local officials. And so I think it's important that the state and locals are the operational arm of this, and FEMA is there to provide that personnel and assets to provide that assistance after the hurricane has struck. So they are pre-positioned, ready to go. But, look, this is a Category 3. We haven't seen this in the state of Texas in almost a decade. Tropical storm into what now is considered to be a very serious natural disaster threat. What
will your role be throughout the course of this weekend?
Primarily coordinating with federal, state, and local to make sure this operation runs as seamlessly as it possibly can to provide assistance to individuals, to provide shelter information to people that need to go to shelters, and to respond to my constituents. But I really wear 2 hats. One is a congressman from District 10, and the other one is chairman of Homeland Security, which is more of a national responsibility. And being from the state of Texas, this will be a very important challenge that we're going to face.
Texas isn't new to hurricanes. We've seen, the destruction and what's happened in the past. Do you think people are really heeding the warnings this time around? What have you seen? What have you heard?
I do. I think initially when it was a tropical storm, we saw on the coastal areas a reluctance by the county judges to declare an emergency and evacuate. But I think after we saw this thing ramping up to Category 2, which it is now, and we predict it to be Category 3. They are heeding the warnings now. We are seeing people evacuating from those coastal areas that are most at threat. And what we want to see, first and foremost, is to prevent loss of life in the state of Texas.
Lastly, I wanted to ask you, because Border Patrol is saying that it's not planning to close its roadside immigration checkpoints unless there is danger to travelers or its agents. The ACLU putting out a statement saying today that they're concerned about what this could mean for immigrants trying to seek shelter or move further north. What's your response to how this is being handled?
Well, I think the humanitarian interests override the mission of Border Patrol in this instance. And so I think if someone is here in the country, assistance really is the overriding interest right now. Certainly, we've seen efforts by the department now to really crack down on criminal aliens. So if they are a threat to society, they would be incarcerated and deported. But I think, in the event of a hurricane like this, they're going to put the humanitarian interest first.
Congressman McCaul, any other words of advice for people out there throughout the weekend? I think
stay tuned to both FEMA, Red Cross will have shelters available. The state and local emergency managers will have information on their websites. And basically, if you don't have to travel, I'd recommend not doing that.
Congressman McCaul, thanks for stopping by the studio.
Thanks, Karina.
Congressman Michael McCaul, the chairman of